One. All right, welcome, friends. We are live inside the Church Marketers Facebook group. How are you guys doing today? We got Dan and Ryan with us. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good, doing well.
Doing really good.
It's always a fun day to get to hang out with Ryan and Ryan. And
Ryan?
So, do you guys want me to use like different tones? Like there's Ryan and like in hushed and reverent ways, and there's Ryan Wakefield. You know, there's Ryan. So I don't know how I'm supposed to address you guys. So.
That's awesome.
Ryan, and Dan. So, hey guys, we're going to be talking today about website volunteers for churches, how to train, how to recruit, develop, utilize, how to lead. So before we get started in that, as you're jumping in, even if you're watching the replay, would you go ahead and tell us where you're watching from, what church you're a part of? Yes. I love that. That's what's unique about live video is it allows us to interact. So that's why we do this live. So as you're jumping in, put those in the comments below. And then let's start off. Dan, why don't you start off? Tell us a little bit about where you're joining us from. And then you're in the middle of a really cool promo thing you've got going on for churches. So tell us about that, and then kick it over to Ryan, the cool Ryan.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm tuning in from Fresno, California, so Central Valley, where it is 130 degrees every day. and you can attest to that, Ryan. What's cool about this is Ryan is one city over, like Fresno and Clovis butt up next to each other. And Clovis is where there's no shootings, and Fresno is where you get shot at once or twice a day. So, right, that's how it works, right? That's basically
sure.
But I'm actually, what's crazy is even though Ryan and I are right next to each other, it would take like 45 minutes I'm over on Herndon and 99. So, I mean, it's like a 40-50 minute drive to get to you.
With traffic, 35, 40.
It's wild, really laid out. So if there's any other people who know the Central Valley or near Fresno, come out and hang out with me and Ryan. We'd love to get out to lunch with you. But yeah, so what I get to do is I run this site called churchhacks.com. And basically we're a passionate team about helping churches getting their marketing done. And so we really give practical examples, you're just getting into it. We're veering away from like theory and kind of, hey, try this, but we're really trying to give you just practical, easy to use, level on your level, just marketing training that anybody can kind of wrap their head around. So that's churchhacks.com, and there's a ton of great free resources there. And then right now, 15 entrepreneurs basically joined together to give away some amazing free resources. Now, this isn't at churchhacks.com. It's actually at Big Free Church Bundle, and it's amazing. I mean, it's over $900 worth of resources, and we'll put a link down. Is it okay, Ryan, if we put a link, somewhere in the comments? So it's a Big Free Church Bundle, and it's amazing. It's only going to be available for a few more days. I think we have 10 days left, but we've already had over 6,000 churches jump in on it. So it's been amazing. So we have a lot of people using it, and there's some really cool. Let me highlight some of the companies that are giving stuff away. Ryan, I know CMU is really just an amazing free download as far as that goes, but let me jump into it because there's a lot of great resources. So it's bigfreechurchbundle.com. And basically how it works is you sign up and you put in your email once, but then for the next 15 days, you get an email that has a free download in it. And again, we're not going to be spamming or something like that. This is just a huge value give to churches. So we've had a ton of people jump on. We've had a ton of great reviews, people saying thank you, people getting the downloads. So there's a lot of free stuff, but man, we have companies like that CC over with Justin Dean, Tithely, Ministry Designs, Ministry Pass, Christian Picks, Church Link, Church Motion Graphics, Church Butler, and I mean, now I'm at day 9, so I might as well keep going. Ministry Library, Church Marketing U, Sunday Social, Radiant Printing, Creative Church, Digital Church, Church Hacks, and at the end we have a bonus day where we're talking a little about a summit that's going to be launching in September. But it's all free. It's crazy what you can get with just your email. And so I would encourage, if you're one of the people who have not jumped in on this, man, go over to Big Free Church Bundle. It takes less than probably 10 seconds seconds to sign up, and you're in. And you're going to start getting all your free cool. Who doesn't like free cool stuff? I don't know about you. It seems like nothing is free these days, and this is legitimately 100% free. And really, it goes to the testament of these amazing companies who are willing to share their valuable resources and kind of come together on this. So, man, all these people are just, man, I love each one of these guys that run these companies, and it's just been so much fun to get to work. Vera Miles is asking, what was the site again? I'm gonna give it to you. It's bigfreechurchbundle.com, and Ryan threw it up in the comments. So check that out, man. It's a great resource. And again, it's really because there was a bunch of there was quite a few Christian companies who were willing to work together to offer this amazing resource. So that's what's been cool about it.
Very cool. Ryan, the cool Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, where you're coming from? Dan already kind of dropped the bomb. You're in Fresno as well. But tell us a little bit about you and your background, what you've got going on.
Yeah, so I also am in the Fresno area, born and raised here, went away for about 7 years to do some pastoral ministry and came back to town and ended up in the creative field. I never really thought I'd be a designer creative, but spent the last 13 years doing design and web development in a large church here in town, and then spun off my own company to really try and expand my influence, because I realized that I had some solutions that could be offered to more than just one church. And the best way to do that was to kind of work for myself, so I could, help a lot of different churches with creative needs and website needs and things like that, and really focusing their communications. So I work with predominantly churches and then nonprofits who are in the church space, who are serving churches and creating services for them. And as you mentioned, I'm in Fresno, or sort of. So, and I run radideas.com, which is my company, and I'm working on a new project called graphics.church, which is going to be kind of a concierge.
Wait, I haven't heard about this. Oh, this is exciting. This is neat. I'm like, basically, are we on the ground floor now? Like, this is new.
Yeah, so I've been writing copy and I started building the site yesterday, and it essentially, my thinking is, I see a lot of churches who need services and don't have somebody in-house, and there's no way that they could ever afford a full-time person.
Right.
And the secretary just, she's got a great heart, but design is not up her alley.
Right.
And so kind of filling a gap there where I need a creative voice and a creative team we can bring into the mix, but don't have the ability to do it, full time. So kind of filling that gap for churches. And that's something that I had hoped to launch this next week, but I'm not quite there yet. So pushing it off another week or so.
That's
great. That's the creative endeavor I'm kind of focusing on, trying to meet needs right now. So
okay, I love that. Yeah, keep me in the know about it, man. I want to talk about that. I love that domain name, man. Yeah. People know I like a good domain name. I'm definitely on that. I think.
Dan, how many domain names do you own?
Over 500.
Oh,
500 domain
500?
Yeah, over 500.
Did you get a bulk discount?
No, I just get the regular. I have a GoDaddy account. It's nothing special. But
you're collecting like baseball cards, man.
Well, but that is really cool. I love that. Yeah, I love that domain. But I love what you're saying, because you're absolutely right, Ryan. There are churches who do need help with the creative and just problem solving. I mean, I know in our organization we hire coaches all the time. We're constantly going to like a Udemy, trying to get resources. If you're just trying to learn everything on your own, it's going to take you forever. You're going to spend a lot more time and resources. So something like this is amazing. I'm looking forward to you. I know we're going to be talking about websites today, but I'm looking forward to you unpacking all that, because that sounds amazing.
Cool. So. Well, guys, let's jump into it, because it looks like we've got people logged in watching us. Again, if you're just logging in, tell us where you're watching from, the church you're part of, in the comments, and start dropping your questions along the way. Again, that's why we're doing this live, is because we want to get to know you and interact with you as well. So today the topic is website volunteers. So churches are always trying to get volunteers involved, or at least they should be. I really feel passionate, like biblically, that's kind of our role. And I think sometimes, let me just throw my cards on the table. Sometimes in the creative area, we kind of skip the volunteer step. Like it's almost like we try to do everything, like as opposed to a worship leader who is like, hey, I'm going to develop out other worshipers and other people in the band who can play along with me. Whereas in the creative, it's like, no, we're going to do the social deal. We're going to do the web. We're going to do the photography.
Do you think that goes back to a little bit as creatives, we really birth these things and we have a more emotional attachment to whether our work or something that we're creating, so it's harder to let go? I know that after doing thousands of designs for churches, that it can I'm working, and I think I've worked through this, but you can kind of, as you're giving that design to a pastor and he says, I don't really like that, you take it in a different way. It's not just like, hey, I didn't set up the chairs correctly. You're like, wait, that was my soul. Like I bared my soul in that project. And you're basically saying, and I always love the ones where, I had my cousin, he did one, he knocked it out, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's fantastic. I think you're just trying to save money. But I think some of it goes back to we're just, we as creatives, and anybody who's watching this, I think can attest to this, is that we put so much of our soul into it. We put a lot of our thought into it. We put emotion into it. So it is a little bit harder just to give to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Ryan, any thoughts on that? As far as why is it sometimes we in the church world, we're like, we're going to do it all. And we fail to say, hey, maybe my role is not to do it all, but to develop other people to help in this process. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for me, the biggest challenge was that we kind of established a list of expectations in terms of the quality of what we were going to produce. Mm-hmm. And our bar was so high that it cut out a lot of people. And so we kind of had this two-edged sword where we were expecting a super high level, but we didn't necessarily have volunteers who could always make it to that level. And so I had to kind of approach things from okay, who truly has the ability I can pour into, and help build, because I see that I just dropped my mic. Sorry.
Bam! He dropped the mic, guys. Take note. It's going on Twitter, Ryan. I'm putting it on Twitter. Mic drop.
Yeah. So part of it was, finding people who, like, you saw in them the true gifting and knew they're not there now, but if I really pour into these people, like in the future, they're going to be there. And so for me, it made it really hard as a creative, because like Dan already said, man, this was like my creative baby, and I wanted to like foster this thing. And so I really had this, like, I was torn a lot of the time. Like, how do I manage and grow people, but not bring down the quality of what we're doing? And so that was, a conversation that we kind of had to have as a team of, how do I bring these people along, and where do I look for that caliber of person? That was, and how do I not spend all my time developing people, because then I'm not going to get jobs done.
Wow.
Trying to find that balance.
Wow.
Yeah,
and you're going to perfectly lay out how you did that, right?
No,
that's the cliffhanger.
It was not perfect. It was ugly.
But even just having to deal with, even just being aware that needs to happen. I mean, you mentioned so many good things, looking for people with talent, investing in people, not allowing that investing in people to become your life. Those are all critical. Even just being aware of those elements kind of gets you closer to where you want to go than if you just were like, man, I can't give this up. I love what you said as far as the caliber being so, because I think a lot of churches fall into this. They have a very high caliber of what they want to do. And most volunteers aren't there day one. So we always say we get to perfection through iteration here. That's kind of like a mantra that our team has taken on. It's perfection through iteration. So we know version 1's going to really, it's going to be bad. and we're kind of okay with that, because we know that if version 1 can lead to version 2, version 3 to version 4. And if we're willing to go through that iteration cycle, we can get there. But it is perfection through iteration, not day one, because I think I know if that was for me, I got started with designing in the church world, helping my church. And day one, if it would have been perfection through iteration, if it would have been like, Dan, it needs to be perfect, I never would have gotten to where I am today. And so, but then also investing in, and then trying to find people, you just don't have the talent for this, man. Like, and sitting down and having those hard conversations. So, man, you said so much good stuff there, man.
Really good. And I was just about to say, let's go through each one of us and maybe give one really big principle, like a big tip. Dan, that's a great one in terms of you got to start somewhere and then work, just keep improving.
Right.
Perfection through iteration. I hadn't heard that one. That's a golden nugget. So
that's all I got, guys. I'm tapping out now. That's it. Is it like it's over?
I mean, even if that was the only thing, it would be worth it. So let me throw out kind of one of my big tips when it comes to this, and then Ryan, I'll kick it over to you, and then Dan, if you want to add in another one. No pressure, because you both already dropped the mic. But one of my big tips,
literally drop the mic, like
one of my big tips when it comes to website volunteers is expand your definition of website volunteers, because a lot of times you might hear that and think, okay, I need a coder or a programmer, whereas what if you really need is photographers and writers and people that can help you with design and search engine optimization and social media. And so if you can have volunteers, like if you expand your definition and say, hey, we might even hire a company to get us up and going on a great website, but what I need is volunteers who can write articles, who can recap events, who can take photography that keeps our website living and going, and extend that over on the social media. To me, that's maybe the sweet spot for a lot of churches. Hire maybe a professional to get you up and going, to hit that high bar, and then use volunteers to keep that thing living. Who are people that can help make sure your events are up to date? Like the detail people. They don't have to know code. Like if you set your website up the right way, they can just make sure, you're still not promoting Easter in July, So that's maybe my big tip is expand your definition of how you define website volunteer. So kick it over to you, Ryan. Any thoughts? What would be maybe one really big tip for website volunteers?
So I would say expectations. You've got to define the expectations going both ways, both yours for the volunteer. Here's what I need. Like, here's the specifics and here's how we get there. But also then the expectations for them of what they're going to get from us, so that they're not having to chase information down. There's not this big question of, was there something I missed? Did I just not see that event so that I could get it posted on the events page? What am I supposed to do with Sunday's media for the message? Like, nobody sent me a link, and so just so you've got the expectations listed, and it could be, a simple, here's your job description as a volunteer, or it could be super in depth. And I found that one of the best things I can do is to screen record what I want a volunteer or someone to do. And just that way I can post it. And then someone new comes on the team. Hey, here's a recording of how we go through the process. So they're seeing it in the window, they're seeing that dashboard, and there's no question of, point number 5 doesn't make sense because it doesn't look the same anymore or something like that.
What app do you use? Because you just mentioned one that I've been using, I'm pretty sure, but what app do you use for that, Ryan?
So I'm using a couple of different ones, but the easiest one is a Chrome plugin called Loom, Loom.
Love it.
Yeah, the website is useloom.com, and it's really cool because you can do up to 10-minute videos. And you can put your picture over in the bottom corner, and they see your screen, and
it's amazing.
You interact with them. It's a super cool thing. And then they actually host the playback, so you just get a little embed link that you can then share, the page with your team, or drop them in your tutorials.
Yeah, place. I found it's the easiest way for me to share videos with my team, bar none. There's no easier way. Like when I'm maybe showing them how to use a program, or I'm showing them, hey, we're going to be tracking something a little bit different, I'm going over a spreadsheet. That is the tool to use. So use Loom, and I have yet to pay anything for it. So I think it's free. Like, God bless America, that's a big thing.
Mine's free. I've never hopped into the paid level either.
Yeah. So it's fantastic.
Let's take a question here from Paula, because I think it fits in really good with those volunteer. That question is, and she asked, have you posted your list of volunteer expectations anywhere? Be so helpful. I think we get so easily tripped up when people come in to us believing they have a skill when they obviously do not. So do you almost create like,
is there some subtext there, Paula? Are you trying to tell us something?
Wow.
I know there's a story behind
my mail.
To be told. So,
I mean, one thing that I think a lot of more churches are starting to do is create volunteer job descriptions. Now, they may not call them that, but I love the idea of a volunteer job description, a training library. So when people come in, it's almost got a lot more structure than, well, this is kind of what we do. So Ryan, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. For me, I think what you already just said, the training library, the place to look, the expectations. But for me, I wouldn't post them anywhere. Right. Because for me, it really comes down to relationship. And like, I want to sit with you if you're interested in being a part of this ministry, and let's hash through and find out, right, in a pre-volunteer interview almost, like, what goals do you have? Why do you want to help? What's your frequency you can help? What skills do you really have? As she alludes to, thinking you have a skill and actually having a skill can be very different. And so, like, for me, it comes down to that relationship. The people that worked for me as the best volunteers weren't always the ones that appeared to be the best volunteers right out of the gate. Because once I started like hanging out with them and spending some time with them, and I went, okay, this person has potential, but they're not there, but I'm going to have to build into them for a while. So while they want to volunteer, I'm just going to spend some time and let them work on their craft. So they're not even going to necessarily like have stuff that gets used for a while. But because that's going to be part of the development. So I think for me, it comes down to relationship. You just got to be like spending time with them, pouring into them. Sundays, come just shadow me. Watch me do this part of the web. Watch me do this. A video is great, but like sit with me and let's talk through, why did we make these choices in design? Why did we make these choices in our focus for this, so that when they do get the reins, that they are enabled by us, but they also feel confident in the decisions they're making. The one I think about the most is a photographer we had who he was a high school student, and he had a great eye. He just didn't have the experience to always capture the best shot. And it literally just took putting a camera in his hands and the two of us shooting the same event, and then sitting and going through his photos and going, okay, this is almost there. Like, what could we do different? How could we look at this a little differently, so the next time the quality of what we get is, where we need it to be. And we went into it with an understanding of, you're not quite there yet, but I want to help you get there. So it wasn't like this offensive, I'm always, shooting him down kind of thing, as much as hey, we're here to grow. And then I could be the cheerleader for the growth process.
I love it.
Yeah. Wow. So much good stuff there. I would jump in and say, it's getting volunteers is only going to get harder. Unfortunately, millennials aren't going to make this job much easier. And so a lot of people say, why are we talking about millennials? The reason why is they're becoming most of the workforce. So a lot of the studies are actually done by large corporations who are getting millennials as workforces. So we're finally getting a lot of core studies, because like an organization like Target wants to, okay, this is going to be half our workforce. We need to understand who millennials are and what they do. And I'm just going to be upfront. Millennials volunteering in a church, I have yet to see, there very few churches are cracking that nut as far as how to get millennials to volunteer. And so I would say just posting a list or an expectation as a doorkeeper, you're going to see most people, like if you just shoot people over to almost like a filling out a job interview, whatever, you're just going to have people. What Ryan said was absolutely right. You want it to be face-to-face, relational. And I think that's one way to get millennials to volunteer is by, hey, come shadow me, do this with me. Let's hang out. Let's spend time together. Rather than, oh, you want to volunteer? Well, here's, go to this part of our website and go look at if you meet the qualifications. expectations. And most churches are struggling to get volunteers, not looking to push them away. I will say this, I'm a right brain creative almost to a fault, and I've really struggled with organization and admin and some of that. And it's really kind of weird because I do run a company with employees, and so it's always been something I've struggled on. And I think what happens when we talk about expectations, it kind of stays very vague, kind of in the cloud, kind of 30,000 feet down. So let me just take 1 minute and help you guys just put feet to this idea of expectations and just do a checklist. Like literally, there's a book called The Checklist Manifesto. Twitter CEO would give it to every employee. Now, again, so let me caveat it with checklists aren't for leaders of leaders. Okay. If you're actually trying to, if you're not, you need to move beyond, if you're like a leader of leader, if you're someone who's trying to lead people, you personally need to move beyond just a checklist ruling your life. Like you really need to be able to problem solve. But for a lot of people, a checklist is a very simple way to move through expectations. So with most volunteers, what you want to do, if you're doing a website and you say, okay, every month, here's the checklist that this volunteer is going to get, and they need to do these 5 things. And there needs to be a little point, and it's just a piece of paper. Once a month, you sit down with the web team, and everyone gets their checklist. And at the end of the month, the next month, everyone turns in their checklist. Did the photography get done? Did the new event get posted? Does the social media get done? And then you can review it and say, what did we do wrong, and what do we need to do right? So if you are heading up this volunteer, just sit down and knock out checklists. Just, okay, here's a checklist when we need a new event added on. Here's the 10 things that need to happen. Here's the checklist, when we need new photography. And then just print those out on little pieces of paper. Honestly, I know, and I see this a lot in church communication groups, is like, which software is the best? Is it Asana? Is it Productive? Is it Basecamp? Honestly, my go-to is Google Spreadsheets. It's amazing. Seriously, like, and honestly, I mean this, if you won't use Google Spreadsheets, you're probably not going to use Asana, and you're probably not going to use Basecamp, and so just start with, having a Google Spreadsheet. Here's the 10 tasks that need to be done. And this will just by having a monthly meeting with your volunteers and having a checklist for each volunteer, that's going to take such a weight off of you. And then next month you can meet again. It's a really simple way to keep yourself organized. And then what you do is you just modify the checklist month in and month out. So you'll be sitting there and maybe you gave one for new events and the person says, well, this wasn't on the checklist. Well, great. Next month it will be. So these checklists are consistently getting better. But that's a great way just to, again, take the load off of yourself mentally. And checklists are the easiest way. People understand a checklist. They understand that by this date, I need to get these things done. And again, it doesn't have, so many times we're in this age of automation and cloud and everybody having, I don't even think I would just start with paper. Just start with putting a piece of paper in somebody's hand. And once you have actually built the discipline of people using paper, of using a spreadsheet, then maybe think about, can we go to automation and can we have it, text people? Can we have it? Sometimes we look for features when we really just need to work on disciplines. So that's kind of my it's kind of my thoughts there. So
that's another mic drop. There you go. That's great stuff. And it feeds right into question Kathy was saying, essentially to sum it up here, because I have a hard time reading the fine print here on Be Live, but saying that there's so much information flying around. What are some free or cheap tools to coordinate who is doing what, many people and all that? And it seems like, Dan, you just answered a lot of that, maybe starting with Google Spreadsheets, starting with a checklist, and then maybe moving on to something like Asana or Basecamp. Anything else, Ryan, you would add to that, or circling back around to Dan on you adding to that as well?
Yeah, I'd say, especially if you're in the Google realm, use Google Calendar for your team stuff. I've gone so far as to create a separate calendar and invite people to it so they can all see it, but have certain things, here's the days we meet, but here's like the deadline dates. And I know it's not as pretty as, an automation thing, but it's free and they can port it onto their phone. They can port it onto Outlook, whatever they're using, and at least see it. And so there's no question. And you're like, hey, if they miss a deadline, hey, was there something that happened? It was on the calendar. Did you just fail to miss it? Why don't we turn on notifications so you're getting those calendar notifications and tomorrow that to-do list that's on your piece of paper needs to be finished. So it's just a nice, easy way. It's, it's not glorious, but it definitely is an easy enough way that, and obviously free helps. So.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here. I'm calling it the next big app for churches is going to be Quip.com. It's Quip.com. I think churches, once they start getting a hold of this, they're going to fall in love with it. And it's kind of like, it does a lot of what Google, it's your documents in the cloud. It's completely free, by the way. But it's your documents in the cloud. It's your spreadsheets in the cloud. It's for mobile, but it also includes chat, and it has a simple to-do list and reminders. And so, but it's a very robust document storage, and they're all live documents, so everyone can be working on them, but you don't have to actually use, it's a desktop app as well as a mobile app. And so we use it here for our organization, and it's amazing because we have that instant text functionality. I personally am not a big fan of using my phone or I would say my text messaging. I want a messenger that's specifically for my work environment. I don't necessarily want a messenger that's, everyone's just messaging me through one app. I like to keep a little bit of wall of distinction there. So Quip.com, it's free. It's amazing for document storage. It's amazing for collaboration, spreadsheets. So it's how we basically run our entire company using Quip.com, and we love it. I mean, it has the internal messaging. It has the document storage. You can create custom memes. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. That's amazing.
That's truly random.
So, but it has a whole spreadsheet, and it just has a lot of cool functionality, and it's free. So we use it every day of our lives, where we keep all of our documents. So it would be a great place to store job descriptions, expectations, to start building out to-do list. Again, I want to go back for just start simple. So piece of paper, give someone something physically, and ask them to have it back in the end of the month, and then keep something similar for you. Again, if your first thought is I got to go find the software that meets these features, you're just so we consistently talk about in our organization, we kind of have this idea that you end up in delusional land, and so we have to remind people that you're in delusion when you're just out looking for that perfect app with the perfect features and all this. Rather, that you're in delusional land. You just need and it sounds, and we all love being there. Like I love being there. I love being the idea. It's a wonderful, happy place where no work gets done. So sometimes you just have to say, okay, I can technically get this done with a spreadsheet, and long term, and I can actually build out a system in a spreadsheet. It's easier to build a system in a spreadsheet than it is to use Asana, because Asana it's cookie cutter. So you can actually build the system that works for you, and then you can go and find that system that actually works, rather than saying I have this idea of what a volunteer system would work and look like, and now I got to go find a program. Well, you don't until you just start using. You really don't. And I'm looking in the mirror here. I'm preaching to the choir, guys. I always had this. I need this app that can do all this project management. And for years looking for the perfect project management tool, I landed on a spreadsheet. I mean, isn't that wild? Isn't that insane? And but it's allowing me to build out the system that I like and the way that I like it. And maybe one day I might look at the system I built and find out there's an app that somebody built that's very similar to it, and we might be able to transition. But using spreadsheets gives me the flexibility to be able to adapt and create and change a system. But again, and with us, it all starts with just a checklist. We run our entire company off of checklist. And so I would say use an app like Quip, Google, a lot of you are already using, and just start creating checklists that can regularly be checked on or looked at and updated, and maybe in 6 months to a year. If you're new on this process, now you may be further down the road, but if you're new on this process, just start simple. You don't need to spend 30, 40 hours looking for that app. It's, Google Docs is there and Quip is there. They're both free. Jump in today and get some work done.
Yep.
I so love that, because I think, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot recently, is that we want to make our lives as the creative easier, which is totally understandable, but that it's really easy to try and systemize before we've actually developed a working system. Mm-hmm. Like we haven't spent enough time, especially with volunteers, to have worked through that process enough and have that meeting where you go, 3 things got missed because we forgot to put them on the system list.
Wow.
And so then we're like going back into, our workflow, and we're how do we build these in and where do we add them, rather than going, let's make sure the system works before we spend hours like making it pretty.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really good.
You just saved some church, if people pick that up and take it, you have literally saved thousands of dollars from budgets and people's time. Because you're absolutely right. We like to, and I'm going to say it, this is Ryan, but we like to systematize before we actually create a system. And is that looking to systemize something, but we don't even know what reality, reality has this really good way of getting you out of delusional land, like actually working with volunteers. Like we all have and I heard it this way and I love it. There's the ideal and there's the real. And the only way you get to the real is by actually working with volunteers and just getting into it and saying it's messy and it's hectic. So you want a system that you want to use an app that's kind of gives you some flexibility. And I've just found if you're building a system out, a spreadsheet's just the best way to go. And then giving people a to-do list, and then having a regular time of meeting with people, whether it be once a week, once a month. It depends on. I would say church staff definitely once a week have a once a week accountability meeting, but once a month with volunteers kind of sitting down and going over it. I mean, and again, I love what Ryan mentioned. I mean, going into you have to rebuild this project on Asana versus I just have to go and add in a couple more rows in my spreadsheet. There's a huge difference when you're going to tweak your system. And so I love that. And they're free. These apps they're free. And I know Asana, right? Asana's like technically free. They kind of get you on with a free version and some of these, but
technically,
Google Spreadsheets and Quip are fantastic. So
I want to jump over because there's been a theme running through here about really focusing on the relationship side. And so I don't want to make sure you guys don't miss that. I think that's been emphasized. We're talking a lot about spreadsheets, but ultimately it comes back to developing relationships with people. And mentoring them and coaching them. And one of the key things that I learned, I was the creative director in my middle 20s, if you will, at James River Church, a church that grew from about 3,000 to 8,000 when I was there, at the time I was there. Wow. And I remember sitting down with my lead pastor, Pastor John Lindell, early on, and he was encouraging me to move beyond me doing everything and staff doing everything to developing and training up volunteers. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then like our next monthly meeting came up. He's like, okay, how's it going? I'm like, well, I haven't really done it. I'm having trouble recruiting people and I don't really know where to find these people. And he's like, Ryan, here's what you need to do. You need to have a regular meeting time. He's like, you're trying to recruit volunteers and then you're going to do the meeting time. And he's like, if you would have a regular time to touch base, start developing relationships, and then you can develop out people coming in and developing people. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to trust you. And we did a regular meeting time, like what Dan was recommending, what Ryan has mentioned. And that started growing. And it also gave me an ability to point people to something. So when I would meet people or other people that started coming to these meeting times would connect people like, hey, you need to come with me to this meeting time. And that was a huge difference. That was a game changer for us. And it gave us the ability to draw people and then to have a system. So that was kind of like, we're going to have reality. We're just going to put it on the calendar. People started coming. Then we started developing leaders. So we'd have people who are like, hey, I've got now a point person for photography. I've got a point person for web. I've got a point person.
Ryan, where did you do those meetings? Was it on the church? Was it at your home? How did you kind of conduct those? What was the background behind those?
Yeah, so at James River Church, we were blessed to have tons of facilities. The creative service department had an office area. So we did in the office area, and then we did it. And we also had at that time like 2 to 3 services every Sunday. So what we did, one of those services was our volunteer meeting like once a month. So that's what we pointed people to. And then we gave volunteers the ability to come in during a service. So we were big on the attend one, serve one. And so like photographers would be coming in and shooting or printing banners or printing photos or uploading. So their volunteer time, they could knock out archiving their photos, putting it in folders where the social media people could grab them. And so that's what they were doing when they were serving. So it allowed us to have that system going. And then again, when we started developing point people over that, it was just, that's where kind of the magic happened. But I remember it all started with my lead pastor saying, Ryan, you're going to have a regular scheduled time that's going to be the starting point of this relationship point. So that, again, I just wanted to drive that home. Relationships, it's huge. You can have systems and apps, but it all goes back to relationships.
Yeah, and that's the only way, as we see millennials becoming the core people who serve in churches, that's the only way you're going to get them there, is by lots of relationship time. And I would even say beyond meeting at the church, meeting your home, just have them into your home. And that's going to make a huge difference. It's just get them into your home, spend time with them, and serving. It's a great discipleship. I'm an old school, I love discipleship. I'm going through discipleship with somebody at our church. I really do think it's a core. I think as creatives, we really got to be careful that we don't put our time just into, now it's important, websites are important, and video projects are important, photography is important, but on a baseline level, us personally, we're still commanded to go and make disciples. And that's not just something we can do on a like a church level, but I am the church, and so I need to be doing this. I can't just be vicariously living through our pastors or our leadership at our church who are disciplers, but I have to personally also be a discipler. So but I understand time is tight, so this would be a really good opportunity if you are heading up a creative to also leverage it for discipleship opportunities. And but yeah, relationship is just, we are going to hit a massive wall with volunteers as millennials become more, if we use the same methods we used 10 years ago. It's just not going to work. We have to go deeper in our relationships with our volunteer teams. And that is by opening up your home, by spending time with them. Instead of you just going out to the theaters or going to watch a movie, you're saying, hey, you're trying to get them with you to do life with you during the week, and then they're serving with you on the weekend.
That's really good. And that we've come to found that those volunteers almost felt like a small group. People would bring in breakfast. We would pray for one another. We would do kind of like once every semester, like fun stuff in the home that was more relationship. They would come over to our house and hang out and grill burgers and almost set my deck on fire. Fun shared memories. But yeah, it's much more. It can't just all be about we got to get a website done. Because ultimately, the website is great, but the opportunity to disciple people and develop people and equip other people in the church in the context of we're doing this website or we're doing photography or whatever. So Ryan, jump in there. Any thoughts on that from your end?
Just that I witnessed as a kid. So my dad was a worship pastor at the same church for 45 years, and our house was the place to be. And like Sunday, we were that family that like people just like showed up to hang out. And what I witnessed in that was that with intentionality, my parents made it a discipleship opportunity. Like Sundays, we had musicians at our house just hanging out. They'd come over after church, and sometimes there'd be Bible study, and sometimes we just hang out and eat, and sometimes but what it created was relationships that gave you the opportunity to speak into someone's life at a deeper level than the way they were serving. So because what brought us together was that unified, everyone in the room is a musician, we have something together, but it almost became that small group aspect. And the church we're at now is adopting that model on the creative side, where we have, like this Sunday, there's a creative night, and anybody in the creative realm comes together, and then they break off. The photographers go over here, and the web guys go over here, and the design guys go over here, and they hang out, because the whole idea is we're going to almost make this small group. Like, you may not serve in this moment. We just want to have relationships. So when we have a need, I know who to call. I go to the photographer small group because I need 5 photographers to show up at an event for kids next week. I need a designer to make sure next week's promotions, are actually finalized and on the web. So I know who that team is, but they're committed to each other relationally, not just job structure or volunteer structure. So it gives you the ability to have an ask at a level that you'd never have dreamt. So while I was a worship guy, we built a new building, and I had some guys who literally would go to the mat if I needed anything, anytime, any day of the week. I could call them and they would do it. They were that level of volunteer, but it was because I literally spent 20, 30, 40 hours with these guys just doing life. Like, hey, let's go get coffee. Let's do something on Sunday. You have a project. I'll come help you with your project. It has nothing to do with my ministry. Like, I just, because it was all about that, come back to relationship again. So I think really that intentionality of, this is a small group, as you said, Ryan. This is something deeper than the job we're doing, because your place in this church is deeper than what the church is getting out of you. It's your development spiritually. It's your, who you're going to be in Christ, and your service is like, one little tiny piece of it. But our job as leaders is so much wider than that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, guys, we're coming to the end of this. So if you're watching this live here with us and you have any questions, throw those in the comments, because we're about to wrap it up. So now's the time. If you've got questions, we've thrown a lot out at you. Obviously, this hasn't been an exhaustive from A to Z, but man, some of these nuggets have just been gold. So if you can take this, it will save you a lot of heartache, a lot of money, to implementing them at your church. So throw out any questions that you might have, and then let's do some closing comments about, just kind of put a bow on anything that's you guys want to say. Hey, kind of a final thought on this topic. Dan, why don't you start us off? What kind of
put me on the hot seat? No, I would love to. I would say this: if you're watching this right now, or you're watching this in the replay, and you are a volunteer, a non-paid volunteer at your church, you're amazing. Seriously, the fact that you take time like this so that you can be more beneficial to your local body, that's awesome. Man, we need more people like you in the churches, and thank you for being faithful, and thank you for being a part of this. If you're watching this as a staff member, so you are paid, your paycheck comes from the local church, you have to implement these things. You can't just be, I hate to say this, and I sometimes can get to the hard things, but you can't just be a gopher, someone who, hey, pastor, I can get, or leadership team, I can get stuff done. You have to be able to empower and help other people. That is a part of your job. It's not just for it to end on you. So please take some of these principles. And maybe you're like me and you really struggle with the admin side and trying to put everything together and put all the pieces together. And at the end of the day, you're just like, Dan, it's faster for me to just go do it myself. Yes, but you don't get that exponential potential. You don't get the ability, well, what if 3 or 4 or 5 people were doing it? They probably could do it better than you in time. And so what you really need to do right now is just simplify whatever. Again, you don't have to have the same systems as a Ryan Wakefield, running, of a church of 1,200. You can just say, hey, Dan, I'm starting really simple. It's where I'm at. It's a simple little checklist. And my team's going to get together once a month, and we're just going to kind of move forward through there. As a staff member at a church, you need to get this down. You need to figure this out. It can't just all end on you. You need to figure out, how can I empower people around me? How can I go into deep relationships and friendships with people around me? That is what's going to have a huge impact at your church. And you really will, as you implement some of these principles that we've talked about in the last hour. You're going to start to see, wow, I'm getting more done. I'm seeing more discipleship opportunities. I'm becoming more valuable to my local church. And that's a big deal. So on both sides of it, if you're a volunteer, man, awesome for watching this. If you're someone who is paid by a local church, please implement these principles. If you're overwhelmed by them, simplify. If you listen to this and you're like, Dan, I want to go take a nap because it sounds too complicated. Well, then just simplify it. Start somewhere. It doesn't have to be necessarily where Ryan would start, or myself would start. Where would you start? And just figure that out and start simple, and have a meeting and pass out some to-do lists. And that's a good place to start.
Good stuff. Ryan, why don't you give us your kind of closing thoughts here on the topic?
So we haven't really, we've kind of gone around it, but I think one thing you've got to think about is, as you involve your volunteers, you've got to work further ahead. It was one of the biggest challenges we had, and in a lot of ways, it kept me from getting the volunteers that I needed, because you just can't expect a volunteer in 2 days to turn out something if it's like the thing they do in the evenings and not what they do all day.
Right.
And so one of the biggest things for me is you've got to start thinking and planning further ahead as a team, so that you can call that web person and say, hey, by next week, I need this to be done. Can you find 3 hours in the next 10 days to take care of this project for me? Can you go shoot this so I can have the photos for it to be online next week? And so, just really setting that plan and being super intentional about it and thinking, what's coming 8 weeks from now?
Yeah.
Let's start talking about it at this month's team meeting. So by next month, we have it done. Rather than waiting until the team meeting before the event and going, in 3 weeks, we have something and I need it next week.
Wow.
Then your team just goes, your volunteers, you start burning your volunteers.
Right.
So really thinking a little bit ahead, taking a step back and going, let's plan further out. And when you cast that vision then to your volunteers of, here's the bigger picture, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and it's why I need your help, and it seems like it's early. We should not be talking about Christmas in August, but here's why we are. And so here's what in the next 2 months we need to do as a creative team as we think about what we're going to do online, and we can start developing it now so it's ready to go in September and we aren't all, angry at each other and frustrated of why I'm volunteering. And, I think very differently now as a volunteer in the church than I did as a staff member, in terms of time commitment too. Like, I don't have 12 hours a week.
Right.
I don't, I've got 2, 3, 4. I think about it differently, when I'm making that ask or when someone calls me, then, I think I took that for granted a lot in the first year. So my encouragement would be plan further ahead so you keep your volunteers on board.
Man, that's
gold. Because he's right. You will burn through people so fast if you're having to make that, hey, can I get that by this Sunday? That should never come out of your lips. Can I get that by this Sunday? It should have been, hey, it was on your list for about a month and they're working through it. But that's gold. If you don't take anything away, that's it.
It's good stuff. Matthew's throwing out there, does anyone have any job/volunteer descriptions that they can share? So great question, Matthew. And if you've got, and don't think, man, ours wouldn't be good enough to share. If you've got some documents that you're working on, checklists, job descriptions, maybe you're watching the replay and you're a part of the Church Marketers group. That's what I love about a group coming together, because we can all say, hey, here's what I'm working on. Here's my document. Take a look. Doesn't have to be perfect. So if you've got examples, and I'll try to round up some as well, then throw them in the comments as well. That's a huge help and one of the major benefits of a Facebook group. And I would just close with saying this, my thoughts would be when you're kind of looking back over your time, maybe you're the leader of a creative department. And, when I look back at my time as developing websites for churches, a lot of those websites are now gone. They've been replaced with other websites. But what's not gone is the relationships, the time that was spent developing and sharpening one another and becoming friends and growing closer to God. So ultimately, what ultimately lasts, I think, is what we've been talking about through all of this, is that discipleship, that mentorship, that friendship. That's what lasts beyond the website. And so a website is a great excuse to do that. But when you look back, I'm telling you, 5-10 years from now, the websites you're working on now will be gone. And what won't be gone is that discipleship and relationship. So keep the main things. Use this as an opportunity to point people to God and build friendships that will last a lifetime. And you'll look back and you're like, man, I'm glad I didn't just always put work first and burn through relationships. I'm glad it was more about that relationship aspect. So that's my kind of closing thought. Guys, this has been a ton of fun. Real quick, kind of give them 10 seconds of just if they want to follow up with you, Ryan, and you, Dan.
I'm laughing over here because my daughter is standing at the door beating. So I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but hopefully not. I just moved to a home office, so that's amazing.
Keeping it real.
So yeah, it's keeping it real. You can follow me on Twitter at Dan Ermler. Just follow me on Twitter at Dan Ermler, or go to churchhacks.com. So
very cool.
You can follow me Facebook or Twitter, Rad Design Ideas.
Rad Design Ideas. Love it, guys. Well, man, this has been
Thank you. This was awesome.
Fun, guys. Website Wednesday, another one in the books. And so this is hopefully we're getting some feedback, and it seems
do we get to go? So what happens if we're never asked? Well, Ryan, this is your second time. So now, Ryan, what happens if I'm never asked back on? What does that mean? Can you kind of give me like you've been voted off the island and you're no longer allowed on? Like, your screaming child in the background cannot come back to our vote. So,
you'll be back on.
Extinguish your flame.
This has kind of been, Michael just had their second child. I think I saw a picture on Facebook, maybe this morning.
Yeah, this morning.
Congratulations, Michael. So Ryan, and Michael are kind of doing the Website Wednesday, and so but we're trying to rotate other people on and other thought leaders on.
Love that.
Barbara on. She's another leader in one of these church communications groups coming up here soon. So we're just going to be rotating people through, like yourself, Dan.
I love it. No, it was a privilege to be on. Love this.
Yep. So having a lot of fun, but and helping churches. That's the huge upside of this. So we're getting a lot of people saying thank you. And man, it's an honor to be able to partner with churches and ultimately help one another reach more people. So, all right, guys. Well,
awesome.
That's it. Okay. Have a good Wednesday.
You too. Thanks.
Right. Bye-bye.